Environmental Education and Interpretation, an elective class, gave Tommy something to help others within their careers. 17 students earned certifications as interpretive guides. This certification will help students get jobs in places like parks, museums, or historical sites. Earth, Environment, and Society professor Susan Kaplow is our next guest, here to talk about the class and the certifications. What does it mean to be an interpretive guide?
Great question. So the National Association for Interpretation is the professional association that administers this, and so I'm a certified interpretive guide trainer. And so they have kind of a set curriculum that has to do with, a lot of it is communication best practices and kind of broadly focused on the idea of making meaning and connecting visitors to something. So when you listed, museums and nature centers and zoos and aquariums and just anywhere where there's like a thing, even historical sites where there's a thing that you want to connect the audience to, and the interpreter is much like interpreting a language, they're interpreting the thing. And so yeah, that's the basic idea of interpretation.
Yeah, could you give me an example of it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're working, say you're working at a nature center and you want to connect kids to snakes, right? So maybe you do a program where I would say the overarching idea is they really try to teach thematic interpretation, which is a little bit like a thesis if you've ever written a paper in college. And so the idea is that you've got some big idea that has universal principles and is connecting the audience through this universal understanding of, universal principles being things like love and fear and power and family, big ideas. And so, like, for example, maybe you have a snake program where you're like, snakes have families just like we do or something, and you're trying to make it so that they can kind of empathize with the snake, maybe get to learn its life a little bit better, and latch the ideas that you teach them onto something they already know about.
Yeah. How will this open up career opportunities for students in the future?
So I have taught a class like this for many years, and a lot of the students do end up going into environmental education, which is a more direct link. But I do think that the principles in it really help anyone in any career who wants to make these kinds of connections, right? I would say a lot more careers have public speaking in them than people realize, or giving presentations where you're kind of asking people to understand something that's not necessarily in their wheelhouse. And I think as part of this elevating the arts component, because, I've taught this class for many years, but when I applied for the grant, the money paid for the certifications, which of course are not free, so that was a really nice thing to be able to do for the students, but it also kind of helped me think about more ways that the class can serve the students in just a general creativity lens, right? Not just environmental stuff, because I teach environmental topics, but like how can we make it more broadly applicable? So even though the grant money didn't fund these aspects, like I sought integration across the humanities designation for it, and I also got it listed in museum studies and communication studies to try to make it so it's not just about like connecting people to the environment, but just broadly, like whatever you want to do, wherever you want to go, you're going to be able to use these principles. And so we also did some arts, we did some activities in the class that were more art focused. We had an artist come and do an indigo dye workshop with the students, and she's a working artist, and she was using a lot of the same principles. It was really neat to see her connect, the act of indigo, because indigo dyeing, I didn't know this either, that it's basically like an art that was discovered in multiple different places around the world, in multiple different cultures. It's sort of this unifying human experience. It's really interesting. And then also weaving is also something that many cultures do in surprisingly similar ways. And then we also saw this piece that the English department brought in called Distillation, which was, if any of you guys got to see it, it was amazing. This performing artist brought in a huge table and filled it with like peat bog material from like the Irish bog, and it was this totally like sensory experience. And that was also something we've been really teaching about, is that when you're trying to get people to understand something, using all five senses is a really powerful way of doing it, and people are a little bit scared of like taste and smell because they seem a little weird. So getting people to kind of think outside of the box, be a little bit more a little bit more willing to do something that may seem weird but is actually a more powerful experience than just talking to people.
Right. And like you said, it transfers over to so many different things. It's not just within the environmental education.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.